Right, so we're going to drive down through Hardwicke village towards the A38. As you can see, the road's narrow. It's got potholes and ruts at the side. Just got to be careful. Fortunately, it's the kind of road that's mostly used by locals, so people tend to know the score. But you don't want to be too optimistic as you're driving down here. You can see the road narrow sign as if it's not narrow enough already. And the opening on the left, the drive on the left, is the last opportunity you've got to stop. So look up the road, make sure it's safe, and then commit. So as with any situation like this, you've got to be prepared to give way. Remember, if you give way, you're in control. That's exactly what I'm doing here. So I know what's happening. I'm not relying on somebody else to give way to me. If we get down by the church here, the road's going to narrow down again. So anticipation and planning. Thinking about what's happening around the corner, thinking about what we're going to do if anything else comes in the opposite direction. There is about twice a day an articulated truck comes down here, which is not fun to me to come in the opposite direction. Again, all the way, it's thinking, being actively involved. We're not hoping that somebody's not going to come around that corner. You're going to be ready if they do. And there we go, there they are. Constantly having a plan, being prepared to slow down, being prepared to stop if necessary. Sometimes people have an issue with stopping. They seem to think that they have to keep on going, but stopping is as much a part of driving as moving is. Again, I'm in control. I haven't tried to squeeze through. End of the road, we're going to turn right, and then we'll be on the A38 heading down towards Standish and eventually Bristol. He's letting me out. Nothing wrong with that, it's their priority. They're perfectly entitled to give up their priority if they want to. But as always, remember, it's your decision. You can't let somebody else make the decision for you. Okay, so on the A38 we're going to turn left towards Standish. The turn is just after the bus lay-by. Important thing here, get an early signal on. That guy behind you is doing 50 miles an hour and you're about to break down to about 20 and he wants to know why. If he knows that you're turning, he's not going to get stressed. He's going to be out of his way. And there's a sharp bend around to the left, scene of my most frightening moment as a driving instructor. And then follow the road round to the right. The important question here, what's the speed limit? So if you missed the speed limit coming into the junction, it was national speed limit, but if you're not sure, first question you ask is it built up area of streetlights? Clearly not. And are there any indications of what the speed limit is? No. In that case it's national speed limit, which is 60 in a car. Which does not mean by any means that you have to do 60 miles an hour. You drive appropriate to the road conditions with a maximum speed of 60 miles an hour. So today the roads are clear and dry. Well, the road itself is relatively narrow. Also, we're in the countryside. We could come up against farm traffic. You get tractors and that sort of thing on this road. So we're looking as far ahead as possible, reading the road, looking at the side of the road, looking at the potholes. trying to keep over to the left without getting too close to where it's really messed up. So I'm going to slow it down here. So I'm going to get forced over to the side. Again, nothing wrong with slowing down if it's the appropriate thing to do. So you don't want to be driving here 20 miles an hour all the way along, it's not necessary. I'm going about 40 in a minute. I've got a blind bend coming up. It's a narrow road, blind bend, get the speed down. So I've got it down to 20 there, still holding it around that. So I go around this bend because again I can't see if there's a tractor or something coming. So I've got my plan, I'm ready to stop or slow down as appropriate if something comes in the opposite direction. Keep your vision as long as possible so you're seeing as far away from yourself as possible. Ready to stop if necessary. Now at the end of the road we're going to turn left. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look to the right as soon as I can. As soon as I pass the church I'm going to look to the right and I'm going to make a decision whether or not it's safe to go. So I'm looking now, I can see the road's clear, give it some gas and away. What you don't want to do is wait until the last second and look around. Nice early look, particularly on nice open junctions like that, or on roundabouts, allow you to make a decision well in advance of actually arriving at the junction of a roundabout. So road signs warning of a sharp turn to the left. Brake into the turn, and then about halfway through go gently back on the gas, and that just helps to keep your car balanced as you go through the bends. Got another sharp bend round to the right, so I'm going to do the same again, brake gently into the bend, and halfway through gently back on the gas. Right, so this time we're going to have a look at the southern end of the test routes around Standish Lane, Standish Church, and then up Bristol Road and down through the narrow road through Hardwicke, the opposite of what we've just done. One of the things to point out here is that as we approach Standish Church, there are actually two entrances into Standish Lane. It's a Y junction. Both of the legs of the Y are two-way, so both of them you can go into and come out of. The way that I would recommend you take it is to use the second entrance, and the reason for that is that there is a refuge lane in the road that you can go into and allow other traffic to move freely. And also the vision to the left in this bend isn't great if you take the first entrance. It's much better if you take the second entrance. So that's the junction up ahead of us. I'm going to check a mirror signal, but I'm not going to this first entrance here. I'm going into the refuge lane, and I can see right up the road, and then I can turn right safely. Just making sure I look right here in case anybody's coming the other side from behind me. Now this road's a classic example of why national speed limit does not mean drive at 60 miles an hour. It means drive appropriate to the road conditions with a maximum speed of 60 miles an hour. Now here the road's narrow, it's got a ditch on one side, it's got trees on the other, and just to make it worse you've got blind bends, so I'm going nowhere near. Certainly at the minute I'm hitting about 30. So I've got a sharp bend to the left, so braking into that, bring it down to about 20, ready to stop if necessary. And then I can go back on the gas when the road opens up again. As with so many of these roads at this time of year, there's a lot of standing water at the side of the roads, a lot of potholes and ruts. Try and avoid driving through the standing water if it's all possible, simply because you don't know what it's covering up. You know, there could be a 12-inch pothole underneath it, so try and keep away from the standing water. There's nothing wrong with driving towards the middle of the road. I can always pull back over to the left if I need to, if I've got something coming in the opposite direction. And I would take the bridge up and over the motorway. And now speeds up between sort of 40 and 50, roads clearer and wider. And then we're going to come back towards what I always think of as Hansel and Gretel's cottage. I'm sure it must be made of gingerbread. Again, varying the speed all along according to what the road conditions are. Today, bright, sunny, dry. Now there's a 50-mile-an-hour sign there as we come out onto Bristol Road, bearing in mind that it's a 2-lane road. 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. There isn't actually another sign for that 50-mile-an-hour speed limit for quite some time, so you need to make sure that you've taken note of that you know what the speed limit is. So we'll get the speed up. There's no reason to be holding back. As I said, it's a beautiful sunny day. The weather's on our side, the traffic's light, so we can make the most of getting up to around 50 and holding it there. Notice I'm keeping a good clearance away from the cycle lane on the left hand side. No need for me to be interfering with them. You don't generally see many cyclists at this time of day, but in the first thing in the morning when they're going into work, or early evening when they're going home from work, the cycle lanes do get much busier. Carried on this road, we'd end up at the Cross Keys roundabout, but we're actually going to take a turn on the left before the Cross Keys, and we're going to go down through Hardwicke village, which is where we started off earlier on. Just giving a nice signal for that guy behind us so he can see why I'm slowing down and he doesn't get frustrated by me. So into Pound Lane. This time this is a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. As you can see by the speed limit sign by the side of the road there. And in case you don't know, the reason why there is a 30-mile-an-hour sign there and not on most roads is because there's no streetlights. And without streetlights, the default speed limit would be 60, unless the road signs are marking otherwise. So they have to have periodic 30-mile-an-hour signs to remind you that that's the speed limit. So we've been warned, signs saying slow. We've got a sharp bend to the right. Also, it's a narrow road. So we don't quite know what we're going to come up against. Our best defence in that case is speed or lack of it. Being ready and willing to stop. And as you might recall, when we're coming the other way, there's a sign saying road narrows, as if it wasn't narrow enough. Got to be prepared to stop because there isn't room for two vehicles to go through here. So I'm going to approach with caution. I'm going to slow it right down until I can see up the road, see if it's clear, which it is. I can continue. Again, using caution because we don't want somebody to come flying around that bend without us being ready for them. And now the road's going to widen out again and we head back into civilization.